to give a little bit more into context, like why this topic and why I started to think about CRMs and communities. So if you don't know that, I came from marketing, and Marike is just an opposite where he came from the open source ecosystems, right? So when we were thinking about what does a DevRel do and what does DevRel do, we had different visions. And for me, it's more selling technologies. So my marketing view was telling me that like it's to help developers, but also to help selling a technology. And on the other hand, Marika, you can explain better. What's your point of view?
I was more in the mood of technology, how DevRel can help to engage community to build a technology. So the way I was seeing it is, okay, it's part of engaging people, but to get technology built, because my background as a boomer person is coming from open source ecosystems and open source communities. And now with these technology communities, I still thinking, okay, all these people, all these community managers and DevRels are helping communities or companies to build technology at some point. So that was the
So
question for us.
exactly. So what Marika did was, okay. So let's ask the community. Let's ask the Twitterverse and say, hey, the real people. What do you think? This is more to sell the technology or to build the technology? And what we got there is that some people said what I thought. Other people says what Marika said. Thought, and other people suggested like maybe it's depending on if you're reporting to marketing or engineering, a mix of both. Well, things were not really clear at the end, right? But what we know for sure is that it's about developers and building communities with developers.
Yeah, and that's very interesting because at the end is us as Peter, as Matthew did in the introduction, is about, okay, we measure the impact in communities and all this stuff. And the kind of DevRel we are working with is basically what we call open source DevRel. So how we see what's the goal of these people is beyond creating an engagement about the technology or helping developers to start using the technology is one step beyond. And the way we are seeing it, I don't know, Anna, if you can bring the next slide. I think is the one that explains clearly this position is they are trying to get people used to the technology, but also start contributing to the technology, and at some point became maintainers of the technology. So basically, one of the main goals in this for this community managers, DevRel, open source DevRels, is to ensure or to help the sustainability of the technology that is being built. And this is how we are seeing like, okay, we are seeing like three different stages of people, like people that is users or most valuable users, as I like to call them. They're basically people that is coming to a community to ask questions because they started to, I don't know, fork the project, clone the technology, start playing with the solution and start asking in issues, in forums, they are start asking, okay, what is this about? So it's more than downloads, it's more about, okay, we have identified interested people, interesting people that is interested in the technology, and then how I can help these people to go to the next level. That is would be like, okay, I would like to contribute to this because I'm used to use this technology and I can answer the questions, or I can even submit some ideas of how to fix the problems of the issues I have found. That I think is a next level of knowledge of the technology itself from a developer point of view. And once these people start to contribute and keep contributing regularly, or the kind of code they are contributing is accepted by the, let's say, maintainers, they are already becoming maintainer of the technology itself. So it's like we have all these stages, and how people can interact with others is creating this notion of, okay, there is some kind of onion or something like layers of people interacting and exchanging from one layer to another along that's how I see the community. But even when we are talking about not only open source DevRels, but DevRel in general, even if it's not open source, even the first stage is like, okay, people that is so asking questions is also interesting for them. Even people that is helping to solve questions or solve issues is also interesting because it's also part of the technology. Probably they are not going to contribute to the code because if the technology is not open source, they are not going to be able to contribute. So please make it open source. But that's will be different talk, I think.
Yes, and what Marike has been saying, right, about the sustainability of the project, it's a key point. It will be this try to know the transition from user to maintainers. That how is this transitioning happening, and to understand that is for me, and I think for most of you that thinks about it, the journeys, like uh, where are my developers, where are they interacting with the product, and how are they evolving from moving to most valuable users to contributors, or when did they start? Did they start as a contributors and then they moved to maintainers? Did they start first as users asking questions and then progressively started to get more engaged and more engaged? So it's not one developer journeys, but multiple developer journeys. And in order to understand that, in order to know what's going on, I think measuring is really important. And now again, my marketing side starts saying, okay, so we need a CRM, right, Marike?
Well, that's very good question, and that's when we were discussing about the topic for this talk was about okay, CRM. We are talking about people, journeys, different stages. So it looks like a CRM and all this funnel thing. But I would like to first of all remove the C as it is now in the CRM and move to something I would like to call the community relationship manager or management, because actually is when we have asked any DevRel in the world, what they talk about is okay, we are about connecting people. It's about connecting external developers with internal developers or external communities with current documentation, people working on marketing and stuff like that. So it's about okay, all these people relationship. But the main point I've seen is that from DevRel mindset is more about I don't want to do marketing in the sense of selling the technology. I want to engage people to contribute to the technology. So let's try to remove the customer's word. And there are already some tools out there that are happening now that I think they are amazing. Savannah is an open source tool that is doing is progressing very impressive, and the other one is Orbit. I suppose I'm very sure that you have already heard about the Orbit model. This idea of onions and level of attraction and all this stuff is scientific research for 10 years ago, and now it's becoming a product. So it's nice to see that people is using these ideas to drive something like as a product. And what we are here is to share our experience because I think is quite interesting. Is we are not providing a CRM. We are not in that business. We are more in the business. Okay, we are helping companies and organizations to understand how the software that matters to them is being built. And again, when it's open source, that means the community at all. And we have an open source solution or toolkit that is able to measure, track information, and stuff like that. This Grimoire Lab is part of the CHAOS initiative. CHAOS stands for Community Health Analytics for Open Source Software. So it's chaos for us. And what we have identified in this in our experience is some key points that I think they are important for anyone willing to build whatever CRM, where C stands for community. And I think the first thing is about okay, all the different areas where community is happening. That is the different touch points. I think in the next slide is a nice view of all of this. It's not only GitHub. It's not only Slack. It could be GitLab. It could be Mattermost, but it could be also mailing list. It could be also Stack Overflow. And when you're talking about with DevRel, it's like, yes, but my community is everywhere. It's how I can track all that information. And the thing is, yes, there are very different touch points, the diversity of tools that are there. Either you focus on some of them or you build something that could be able to support a lot of them. The nice thing about Grimoire Lab is it supports like 30 of these platforms, so you can start playing with that. And the other thing is about the different motivations from when we are talking about marketing, in the saying of, okay, my motivation to measure all these people movement is how I can move them to the leads funnel and then make them customers. or make them advocates to the people that has decision power in their companies to buy my technology, because it's where my bosses is how evaluating my work. And here we are talking about, okay, we can measure things that probably could be different, like how people are helping to make your technology known, for example, or known, or liked, or trusted. That I think is the last part of all of this, is how I can become a trusted provider of technology that then I can keep communities engaged. And last but not least is how all these interactions are very different from sales. Like, okay, let's put things in Google Analytics in a website. Here is more about talking, it's more about how people are mentoring each other. And that's one part of that diversity of things. And the other is, given that diversity, people is using a lot of different identities and profiles depending on the tooling they are using. And that's already known also in CRM when they are providing in sales, like, okay, we have use cases, so people go there, they download the use case, and then they submit an email through the web form and stuff like that, how I can merge all of that identities. We have found the same issue when we are talking about measuring communities. And one of the solutions we have provided as part of Grimoire Lab is Sorting Hat. It's an open source tool that the name comes from Harry Potter, the hat that decides which house do you go to. So basically, it allows to aggregate all this information about people, and then you can merge the different identities into a single profile. So once you start querying the data, you can see, okay, my community, where they are participating. All these people are only doing code or are contributing code, are also asking questions, are solving questions, and all this information can be now seen quite differently. Like, it's not only, again, GitHub, but you can also play with that. And that's based out of in an experience. But I would like also, Anna, to share the experience we have with Jeff, for example. So
Yes.
I will let you drive that part because you do that much better than me.
Yeah, so Jeff is one of our customers and one of these open source DevRel profiles we have here, right? So let me introduce a little bit for those who are not familiar with Jeff. Uh, okay, my video has been frozen, but you are still listening to me, so that's great. So as I was saying, Jeff initially had a consolidated user community, but they wanted to start building a more consolidated contributor community too. And because of that, last year they started to see uh, to start to implement DevRel programs. And the goal was to see how people who transition into this contributor community behaved before when they were in the user community. So Jeff is defining, in their case, user community as the people who source activity mainly on Slack and Discord. And the people can be filtered by active users, inactive users, top contributors, and also organizations involved. And then on the other hand, Jeff also defines the contributor community as the people who source activity on GitHub, and it's divided by commits and pull requests mainly. And also the people can be filtered by organizations. So the outcome of all of this is that this DevRel dashboard that we call it was developed for Chef to show the activity in the user and developer communities across the different platforms used by both. So Chef was at the end able to understand the community pathways, and in this case execute a strategy to grow their developer community, which was the main goal they were having. So just to end this, Marike, do you know that, or do you think that DevRels can do more than that they are very thing they are doing right now?
Well, that's a very good question, and I think that's for me the main outcome of this talk is really think that DevRels can the means to help build the technology for the companies they are working on, for the organizations they are working on, beyond just consider that they are only measured by the number of advocates, leads, or whatever they can provide, one of the things we are seeing is with this information, having this information, if they can smartly show that information to the managers, they can showcase, okay, we have more than just leads here. We have people willing to contribute to make this project a successful project. And of course, this is my open source mindset here playing, but I have the feeling that this should be the natural way of any DevRel open source person. But it could be also in any other case, but like, okay, if someone is willing to help in my forums or in my Slack channels to answer questions that, okay, it's not our support system answering the questions, I can provide that as valuable resource to the company. And the other thing I would like to highlight is like Savannah, Orbit, and even Grimoire Lab. There are open source technologies out there that can be used to build this kind of solutions and frameworks for DevRel. So it's a matter of, okay, we are all technical people. It's a matter of reach an agreement and start working on a nice open source project to solve all this. And I would like to listen to your comments and questions in the audience, because I think it's going to be more than important, not for us as Viteria. I love the DevRel community, so for the DevRel ecosystem, to have means to showcase what is the value of DevRel beyond being part of anything, is how my connection with the development ecosystem can help, and how I can showcase that to the organization I'm working for.
Great, thank you very much for the talk. So Anna, you're still frozen, so
Yeah, I
we can
see.
hear you just fine.
It's a nice photo. It's a nice photo.
Yeah, it's worked okay. All right, thank you very much for that talk. That was great. I have a question though. I would say that probably these days most developer relations activity happens around non-open source products, so APIs primarily, things like that. What can, and of course, well, I would say that most developer relations heavily borrows, if not is, just a retread of things that were built up in the open source community over the past 2 decades. But what in particular about measuring activity and so on, and understanding the extent of a community can non-open source DevRel programs learn from the open source world?
That's very good question, Matthew. Thank you very much for asking it. And if I have understood about, if we are talking about measuring in not open source ecosystems, not open source communities, I think there are, as I try to explain, good lessons to learn. Like, okay, one of the main goals, for example, when you're talking about APIs, when I'm seeing DevRels or people advocating about APIs, it's about exactly that. Advocating to use my API instead of any other, because this is the nice API we have. You can start playing with it, and then the corporate that, the organization I'm working for has some customers that are usually are corporates that are using APIs. So basically, it's how I can convince the developers that are working for that corporation to use this API instead of other. And that's the, as I said, the marketing and sales funnel. And then what I can learn is, if those people start using that, and I have a way to provide them a way, or a mean to provide them a way to submit any issue they have found, or any feature request they would like, again, DevRel has the capability to say, okay, probably our marketing and sales people are talking with our customers and all the feature requests they have from corporations, but the developers that are working on those corporations are telling me also these requirements or these issues. And then it's up to the company to decide, okay, I'm not going to listen to my DevRel team because I'm very focused on my business team, because it's the one that is getting the requirements from the customer. This is only me probably, but my view here is, then you are very narrowing your mindset and not learning the lesson of how community can help you to have a better product, a better technology. And if you look at, as you said, these 20 years of technology, 25 years of technology, 30 years of technology, a couple of examples of projects that has been sustained and survived all these waves of digital transformation or buzzwords or whatever, I can give you a couple of examples. The Linux kernel and the web technologies, like the web as it was invented. That nowadays is like, there could be a lot of customers asking a lot of things, but people willing to contribute and make that better thing has become a product that is still there. And it started like, okay, this is just a test. This is not something big, as Linus Torvalds said in his fair email, or Tim Berners-Lee also said in his first, okay, I have implemented this for the CERN, and I don't know if it's going to end somewhere, and now it's everywhere. So this is how I think companies could learn, okay, if all this crowd out there is willing to help, why I should be only listening to my customers? That's my fair point here, I would say.
Okay, yeah. So whether or not you give people direct access to modify the technology that you are responsible for, certainly that feedback loop is essential to improving the product.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if we've got any questions in the Slack. It looks like not. So okay, not to worry. All right. So then I guess I will say thank you very much for your talk. I know you did put it on the slide, but where can people find out more about Bitagear?
So you can go to bitergia.com, and also if you follow us on Twitter, it's Bitergia. Also, we already put it on the slides. Manrique's Twitter is JS Manrique. My Twitter is EnnaJS Enna95.
One last question. The name Bitagear, where did it come from?
Oh, do you want me to explain that, Anna?
Yeah, go ahead.
Imagine 5 crazy people, just how I can name a company that is talking about technology, and we were talking about energy, synergy, bits, and it was like bits, energy, Bitergy. But we started with Bitergy, and it was like, no, let's put a more Spanish name, Bitergia. So now we have Manrique working in Bitergia with a technology that is called Grimoire Lab. So it's nice for this international world.
Cool. All right, great. Thank you very much. Okay, well, again, thank you. We'll wave goodbye to you, Anna and Manrique.